This podcast contains explicit content not suitable for listeners under the age of 18. Parental discretion is advised.
All right, so today we wanted to come together and just talk a little bit about social media and, the positive and negative effects that it has on people. And the first area we wanted to bring up was mental health and well-being. So positive for social media is that 30% of U.S. teens say that they at least get some kind of mental health info via social media. And of that percentage, 63% say it is an important source. So it looks like, 34% of teens use social media just to find mental health resources. But do we feel, is that the place that they really should be finding mental health resources, I guess, is my question? Social media?
I don't think social media is a place because for me personally, I didn't grow up in the whole social media, all of it, watching all of that come to fruition and everything. Facebook wasn't even really a thing when I left. So when I count, I've been out now almost 2 years, and just everything I've learned about social media, it seems like it's more I'm gonna tear you down to uplift myself, and that's how they're like people are falling into groups like that. So for me, if you get in social media from a place where there's more negativity spread or disinformation spread, it seems kind of like it would be counterproductive for those that really needed help, right? But I don't know. I ain't.
Well, in my opinion, of course, social media and the advent of Google and just the way you can just fast track and get information, right at the tip of your finger. Of course, that makes things so much more accessible and easier, right? I believe that, of course, from a different generation standpoint, it kind of matters too, because Jesse, you're actually an anomaly at your age, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because really, for a person your age, you're supposed to be the most knowledgeable about all of this. Like, I'm supposed to be going to you about issues, whether it's my laptop or my phone or anything, because the younger the people are, the much more just that's just a part of how they live. You know that. Look, I have a friend whose son, his actual nickname from when he was a baby is cell phone because he kept two cell phones in his hand, and that's what would calm him down. So, no, I'm so serious. And just
Oh,
think
I know.
he's
I
not
know
even.
kids like that.
You're right. And just think he's not
Yep.
even maybe, what is he, maybe 12 now, maybe 12. I don't even think he's a teenager. But you know how um, just knowledgeable he has to be, from a social media computer standpoint. Go
Now
ahead.
I've seen this. I've seen this. I don't know if it's true on social media this morning, and it showed your brain activity, especially your creative brain activity, decreases by what do they say, by like 30 or 40% after 15 minutes of cell phone usage.
I would definitely
I
believe
I
that
don't know if
because,
that's true or not, but
But
oh,
that's what
okay.
they
this
was
is
talking
this
about.
is a perfect example, David and Jesse, that Jesse's talking about is like, okay, these sources might be on social media, and there are legitimate sources, right? So we know that people have professional like company pages now, so there is correct information being put out, but we also know that there's a lot of disinformation being put out. So for example, we don't know if that, real, that, post, was it legitimate, was it not? Because that's the problem with all these free speech and things like that. There's no vetting anymore. There's no verification. It's just whoever can post first is, you know what I mean? So when you're not worried about the integrity of what you're posting, you're just worried about being the first one to post. That's when it becomes an issue, right? Because now the information that's being posted isn't what our grandparents' information was getting, because they were getting vetted sources. They were getting, all of this information. And now social media, anybody can be a source, right? I can be a source. You can be a source. You see where I'm going?
Yes, definitely. And let me tell you guys this, especially being the oldest out of all of us. I remember when news and information didn't have an opinion to it. It was just, and these are the facts, right? Everything
Yep.
now is so opinionated and giving you their viewpoint, where back in
Whoa.
my day, they trusted us. No, that was actual, it was this famous
Nah.
reporter named
Hey,
Hold
Walter
on.
Cronkite.
Hold on. Hold on.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna tell you after you finish. I just googled that shit that I was just talking about, and I got the answer. So go ahead, and I'm gonna tell you after.
Good. Stay on yours. Talk about yours.
So this is what Google says about creative brain activity decreasing after cell phone use. It says evidence suggests that creative brain activity can decrease following cell phone use, primarily due to the cognitive cost of distraction and the disruption of mental states that are conductive to creative thinking. Research indicates that this effect is complex and can be tied to a number of factors, including the degree of cell phone dependency and the specific ways in which the phone is used. Damn.
Now, I will add to Jesse's statistics and I do have a few of my own where teens or youth who spend over 3 hours a day on social media show 2 times higher risk of mental health symptoms such as depression and anxiety. And among the high social media users, over 41% rate their mental health as poor or very poor.
Wow.
So I don't understand is why are individuals turning to social media for likes, for comments and views? Why are they turning to social media for acceptance instead of the people around you? Like I don't. When I left, there was still like real community and friendship, right?
I will say
The
my advice to everybody is if you do not know that person in real life or if you don't know them through a connection, do not add them as a friend on Facebook just for safety purposes. That is
Shifting the topic to
body image and self-esteem, because you know what, a lot of that stuff that you guys are talking about leads into that, right? It leads into, among US adolescents, 13 to 17, 46% say social media makes them feel worse about their bodies because they're having these images of what women should look like.
but I spent the majority of my time in prison around men, right? It's men. I'm in a male facility. So we would get the magazine and I would watch the progression over the years, and me especially because when I would do the art, especially when I was first learning how to do portraits, I would find women in magazines, and I would always find women based on their hair or their eyes or maybe how lighting hit their skin, right? And I would try to capture that in my art. But I would talk to guys in there. I'm like, man, what the fuck's up with all these eyelashes? And the guys, especially the younger ones coming off the street, they laugh and they're like, yeah, they all doing that now. And I'm like, why do y'all like that? Is that what y'all like? This shit don't that look attractive? And all the guys in there be like, not really. So what I don't understand is if women are trying to attract men by doing this, why are they doing it? Because I would much rather have a big small butt that's going to the gym and doing squats than one that's been injected with some whatever.
Well, here's another stat I'm going to throw out there. So, some internal documents suggest that 1 in 3 teens say that Instagram makes them feel worse about their bodies.
Oh,
See, I could see, especially for teen girls, right? Because teen girls, they look on here and they be like, oh, these women got this, but they're teenagers and they're just now becoming to a point where they're starting to be attracted to guys, right? And they want guys to be attracted to them. It's natural, right? And I'm just, speaking of just hypothetically here, I ain't getting into nothing specific, but I can see how that they get on there and they see these women on there that have done whatever to their body, or they're using these features on their social media or whatever to enhance their appearance in whatever way. I could see how that could be disheartening to a young girl going through, you know, adolescence, and especially with the changes that's happening internally and externally, right? And but
I mean, but boys are changing too. They got, they got their own changes in hormones going on and testosterone and stuff, and they're looking at images of what men are supposed to be doing. And can't you say you could flip that entire argument for boys too and say, hey, they want to be men. They want to attract girls, right? They want to be,
honestly,
you know what I mean?
I
Would you
mean,
say it goes both ways?
no,
Okay,
because I
but can
for
I
me,
let
yeah,
me
go ahead.
interject for a second, because this is the difference between the male, well, like you said, the boys and the girls. For me, I would think that the boys, I guess to get specific, heterosexual boys are, if they're looking at other men, they're just looking at other men that are healthy. Does that make
Well, that's what I
sense?
say, that to
Like,
compare themselves to, yeah, to say this is
right,
what
right,
I
right.
want to
But
be.
it's
But
much more of a health type of perspective as opposed to the women for the most part. They're not looking for healthy women. Women dealt with the health perspective and that's what they looked up to, then that means they would have to get in the gym and do a lot of other things besides getting hair and weaves and other things that are quick fixes. So that's the
but
difference
look,
between.
this is the thing. This is how for me, as somebody who didn't come up with the social media and didn't see how it evolved, I can see how it's tearing them down, the boys too, because look on social media as men, what do you see? You see these young guys shooting each other, right? Like literally the first sign of an altercation, I seen this dude as a prank, right? You know how they doing all these wild pranks now on social media. But he walked up to a guy in a convenience store and was like, yo, you was just talking shit to my brother? Immediately the guy in the convenience store pulled out the gun. He said, man, I'll Swiss cheese your ass. Immediately. So as young men that's trying to figure out who they are, they coming up and they seeing, oh, I gotta have money, I gotta sell dope, I gotta have a gun, I gotta shoot people, and I gotta have these clothes and this, that, and the third. I was literally just talking to my man the other day about a picture of his young son, and that's all I'm gonna go into beyond that, right? And he was telling me he was in agreement. As soon as I brought it up, he was like, "Yeah, bro." I had to talk with him about it because that's the image that they portraying to young men, right? A lot of times on social media, you're not seeing young men that's doing something positive. You're seeing them doing negative things. You're seeing young women, at least for me, in my experience, and just being introduced to it for the last year and some change. You're seeing young women mutilating themselves to attract who? I don't know. And you seeing young men just like glorifying the destruction of their lives.
Well, I'm gonna tell you this: whether it's social media or the real actual media, news media, those are not two mediums that you should go to for positivity, right? So, as
Yeah.
parent or an adult, you have to teach that to your kids right away, because if that's the places that you're looking at for positivity, you're going to be very disappointed.
Oh,
I wanted to go back to something David had mentioned. But so the key statistics, up to 95% of U.S. youths aged 13 to 17 report using a social media platform. 95%.
95%.
In 2023, 77% of U.S. high school students said they use social media several times a day or more. And then a 2019 Common Sense Media survey found 54% of teens get news at least a few times per week from social media platforms such as Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. The same,
54?
the same survey found 50% get news from YouTube at least a few times per week. One source, the World Press Institute, reports that 51% of Gen Z teens ages 14 through 18 get their news from social media feeds, putting it above TV news or other news websites in that group.
Okay. Hold up. I got another statistic I want to know. I want to know as a fitness instructor, and David, you might be interested in this. I want to know the average resting heart rate for teens before social media.
Wait, in the U.S.? Because
In the U.S.,
okay.
in the U.S., the average resting heart rate of teens before social media existed, and the average resting heart rate of teens after social media existed. I'm curious about that.
That's a good question, but I doubt if they got that information. But that is a pretty
Yeah, I was gonna say
interesting
I don't think
question.
it. I don't
Why
think it
doesn't that
because people
statistic
have to
exist?
track that information. That's how a statistic
Yeah,
is
yeah, because
formed. Somebody has to
'cause-
collect the data. If there's nobody to
right.
collect the data,
Don't you?
then
Maybe somebody should exist to collect that data, right? Because what happened to playing outside? I used to swing on a rope swing when I was a kid until I couldn't hold on no more, until my arms gave out.
Okay, listen. Let
I
me
was
express this. I don't know if you would consider this social media, but I noticed this. I remember this about my son when he was young. What about the way, from a communication standpoint, that you can get on those games and talk to people around the world like he would do when he was playing Halo or some kind of shit like that, right?
sorry, Jesse, your statistics do not exist.
It's funny. It's funny. All these statistics.
However, we do have the following statistics, which did age group statistics. So we have certain decades. So there was a U.S. study, for example, for the resting pulse rate reference data for children, adolescents, and adults between the years of 1999 and 2008, which gives the resting pulse rates for adolescents in that period, which is typically 12 to 17, 78 beats per minute. So that was, 1999 to 2008. Now, moving forward, it's showing that from that's the problem. There's no statistical data after that. So I guess there's a gap.
Why aren't they tracking the resting heart rates
All they have
of our
is the
youth?
average, but nothing's tied to social media.
Why isn't that? Why for our we're talking about World Health and we talk about our Surgeon General and all these health organizations that are the government they're so keen on us being healthy Americans. Why don't we track the resting heart rate of our youth? Like that should be something that should be definitely tracked, right? As a fitness instructor, do you agree with me or not?
I mean, I would see the benefit in it, but I don't think I don't think the youth is our government's priority in that sense.
But
And I believe that they don't want to gather that information because they want social media to thrive and they want to, they want all the involvement.
but
They don't
why?
want people to turn away from social media. That is not the
But
goal.
my thing is, why can't social media just be a positive thing? I want to talk to you for a minute because you have that real. You was an adult before social media was a thing,
Yeah.
right? And I never even looked at Facebook. It had just came out and was starting to become public before I went in. I never went on there and looked at it before I went to prison.
Yeah.
I'd never seen a Facebook account, a page, anything until 2023.
Dude, Facebook made MySpace go away so fast. It was like you even forgot it existed.
So, and that's my point, right? So the shit changing up so fast. For me, it's brand new. Think about it. A kid in elementary school knows more about social media than I do. You know more about it than I do, right? So I'm looking at it. When I first came out, I was completely enamored. I'm like, oh my God, look at all this stuff. But I'm looking on it and I'm like, It's all destructive. It's supposed to be informative, right? But what's really informative? And I'll go and I'll Google some of the stuff that they talk about that they doing, right? Because of course it interests me being a six-time convicted felon, fresh out of prison. Yeah, of course the more knowledge interests me, right? Most I danced in powwows as a kid, right? I literally know how to rain dance. So of course it interests me, but I go and I look up some of the stuff and I'm like, man, this is bullshit. But why? You see what I'm saying? And it's like they taking something that's beautiful and they manipulating it, and they twisting it to make it seem like it's all bullshit, and it's not. It's not. The Moors is real. The Moors are real people, right? The Apaches are real people. Cherokees are real people. The Trail of Tears is a real thing. Why is it okay to spread disinformation about these things that affected like millions of people? That still to this day, some of these events, people still haven't made it back from. If you look, if you look and see what some of the indigenous people in South Dakota on the reservations go, they on reservations. They've been on reservations, and you see the poverty, right, and the squalor that they forced to live in order to have their rights as indigenous people. If you look at that, and I watch these things on PBS in prison, so it's not like it's not known, but you spreading disinformation about this. And you expect, and then you expecting people. How can people ever be connected and be united and be uh, human beings if they conditioned to not give a fuck because it's bullshit?
Well, I'm gonna jump in here and say this is the part where I wanted to bring up how social media is actually a good thing in today's society because, for example, you know, video calls didn't exist before. Now they do. So now we can talk to our loved ones that are incarcerated. We can see them on the screen wherever we're at. You know what I mean? We can see them whether they're in a war zone. You know what I'm saying? We can see them when they're in another country. You know, these things didn't exist before. So all we had was letters and phone calls. And some of those places you couldn't make phone calls to. So the good thing is that social media has made it where people from all around the world can connect again and be able to talk and see each other. And that is a positive thing as well.
But I'm gonna fire back though, because let's look this statistic up. How much of human communication is through body language, right? And if you constantly distrust everyone you communicate with because you don't know if it's real or a lie, where's the community?
But that's not what I'm saying though. David, my whole point is that now you have methods of video calling and things like that where you can see each person. It's not oh, I don't know if this person's real or not, because at this point it's you're calling and you're picking up and you can see that person. That's
Hey,
the
hey,
reality we live in.
hey, check this out. The tool itself. How about if I break it down, at least the way I see it, in this sense, the tool itself, which is social media, is not a bad thing. It's humans that are bad. We're the one that made it bad because, like you just said, Jennifer, the actual tool of being able to now so
To
quickly be
communicate.
able to to in a video sense of knowing that you can actually see another human being from wherever they may be in the whole world, right? At a drop of
Exactly.
a hat, dude. That's a beautiful thing. That is the tool. The tool
But
isn't the
hold
problem.
up,
It's the
hold up. I
people
gotta
that's the
ask this
problem.
though. I gotta ask this though, right? Because you talk about you can see somebody from anywhere in the world, but I can create whatever. I mean, I personally can't, but I've heard that you can create whatever background you want through AI and be anywhere you want to be
But it's still you when you were answering the
Yeah,
call. That's the whole
yeah,
But I
point.
could tell you I could tell you where I could tell you I'm in Paris, France, and the whole time I'm 2 blocks away from you.
So,
yeah,
I mean, what's it gonna get you? The fact that you lied? I
yeah,
mean,
yeah, 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 yeah. What's your
like it
point?
doesn't
Yeah, yeah.
matter. Like that doesn't play
Yeah,
into the connection piece, you know?
you can very well do that. Look, or if you had
Yeah.
a phone in prison, you can change your background instead of us seeing sales. Then, we could think you was at the beach for all we knew, right? But like Jennifer said, so what's the point besides that we just don't, you didn't want us to know what was really your background. Your best bet is to do like I said, try your best to find the facts of whatever you're looking for, and then you make up your own interpretation from there. Because everybody wants to give you their opinion and veer you over to what they're thinking and trying to get. Like, look, it's funny, like we mentioned it, get followers, right? Get people to just say, hey, I follow this person because I like what they're saying. That's why you have a whole section of people like me that don't follow anything, right? Because I don't
Yeah.
trust anything, right?
Yeah.
But evidently people do like to follow though too, because the majority of people either follow, something. But in terms of it being social media's fault, like Jennifer said, maybe it exacerbated it, but it wasn't the catalyst. It's
No,
human
that's what I'm saying.
beings,
All these things existed before the internet, before social media. What happened was is that these tools, which were made to help connect and unite people with that thing that we talked about, the video calls, being able to see people in other countries that we would never been able to have that option before. Skype, you know what I mean, was the
right?
first of its kind, and that was exciting when that happened. You know what I mean? We had YouTube where people could like make their own content and share. You know what I mean? And these were all exciting things, but then you also saw very quickly people misusing these very tools, like, for example, the YouTube killer, where they were going around killing people for YouTube views. You know what I mean? Anybody can
Yeah,
misuse anything. It's a tool. It's how that individual is going to use it, whether they produce something good or not. But I wanted
right.
to bring it back to those statistics that Jesse was asking for, which was, research shows that a large portion of communication is nonverbal, which a lot of us know that, but 55% of emotional meaning comes from the body language, while 38% comes from the tone of voice. And when the body language and the tone don't match, the body language typically carries more weight than the actual words.
So again, I want to make sure I'm clearly iterating this. I'm not condemning social media or saying that social media is all around a bad thing, right? I'm just saying that for me personally, in my experience, because I went to prison really before there was social media and I came out since there was social media. And I feel like there's been a drastic decline in society. And the only thing that's really changed is technology, right? There's no real humanity. People don't connect no more, right? There's not really, you meet people online and you talk to them. And I have pen pals that I still talk to this day. I've never met in person. And, I don't really have that same connection. I can't say I had that same connection that I have with them that I have with you, right? I haven't seen you in what, 15, 16 years?
Woo, wee, yeah, man,
So we haven't
yeah,
personally been in a room together in 15, 16 years, but our relationship was established in the physical, right? So we had
yeah, yeah,
that
yeah.
bond,
But
right? And
no,
even
it
though
was
we
established
stayed
in
in touch,
reality.
again, I'm not saying social media is a bad thing all around, right? I just don't believe that individuals should be able to get on there and post blatant lies, right? Everybody has the right to free speech. I'm not going to argue that. But you should not be able to get on there posting a video or reel in any type of educational sense where you're instructing something or you're giving information or you're portraying something that is other than realistic. I feel
And
like
I
there
tell
should be rules on social media that says, hey, once you start getting beyond a certain point with this fake shit, we're stopping you. That's all I'm saying.
Please join us as we continue this conversation in our next episode.